Hello, Arbitrarians. Welcome to an all-new episode of the Arbitrarium. I'm your host, David Perry, and my guests today are Cambodian serial mascot, Garrett Harriman, Jack of Two Trades, Nicholas Harriman, and lusty fembot, Jenn Schatz. Our topic today is cult, how to build your own. So first let's define our terms. So what makes a cult a cult? What sort of things are required in order to have a cult?
Well, there's some disagreement, because a cult it's hard to classify. Some people, like nowadays, anything that kind of goes against your personal ideology is easily labeled a cult. Good example is some people describe the alt-right as a cult. Mm-hmm. Some people describe Islam as a death cult. I've heard that quite a bit. Mm-hmm. But I don't know if they fit the actual definition. Jenn was talking about this before we started the recorder. If you want to...
Yeah, I mean, a cult, in my viewpoint, is, just a extreme viewpoint that others may not, kind of agree with. It's not as mainstream, maybe.
Cato?
Like the Cato Institute, or Cato Kalin, or...
The Cato diet. Like some people get really, really into it.
Oh, keto?
Keto.
Like
keto.
My diet.
That's the one that she's
I'm
literally
doing
on
right
No,
now.
I mean more your parents who go really hard into it.
I'm doing that currently.
Nice save.
Yeah, I mean, diets can definitely be that a form of, a cult, if you want to
Vegan.
look at it that way.
What's the name of that particularly... I want to say pathogenic, but it's probably not the right word. It's a multi-level marketing scheme. It's like
Like a
Young Living,
or Amway tapes.
No, it's
Body wraps?
They sell.
Thrive?
Atkins?
No, it's not that. That might be part of it, but it's like Young Living. That they sell it as a health items and.
I don't know
essential
specifically
oils.
which one you're talking about. There's a few of those, though.
You mean like pyramid schemes in general?
Well, in this one, they really, really push. You gotta
Live in a pod?
Yeah, you gotta
Eat the
live in the
bugs.
pod and use the oils.
Yeah, I mean, I think you could define it as hoping for this extreme outcome. Like that's the promise that those things give you. I mean, a pyramid scheme promises you wealth down the road. Mm-hmm. Maybe some of the more religious cultures promise, a higher self when you leave, or
It's a discount religion.
You can be saved if you act this certain way and everyone else is going to die, but you have to put yourself in it fully to commit to it.
And if you don't fully commit, then it's not going to work. And that way, if it doesn't work, well, you didn't commit fully.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
It's your fault that it didn't work. And that could be dieting. That can be pyramid schemes. I mean, I think anything that promises this extreme outcome, as long as you follow their rules, will, could be classified as a cult.
So
That's a better definition, I think, than what you started with, because a lot of things I think could fall under... Because the first definition you gave was like, well, anything that I disagree with could be a cult then. But having a structure like that, where it's like, if you do things the way I tell you to do it, then great things will happen. Like that is very much a cult type thing.
And they usually do have, like you said, an extreme leader or some kind of thing that
charismatic narcissist, typically,
right?
as a
Typically
leader.
narcissist.
Cool.
Well, I'd personally say that a lot of things could fall into the purview of a cult. Except they are so far in the past that we can't really say that it didn't happen.
Say another big part of the doctrine or the scripture of a cult, however you want to phrase that, is based on non-falsifiable claims.
Yeah.
That does help.
Yeah, because it's like, well, I don't know. By doing this, your dog will always have just amazing hair. As an example, well, my dog has amazing hair. You can't say it doesn't. Well, it's very subjective. Mm-hmm. So, or a claim of it cured my Tourette's.
Or in the case of Heaven's Gate, a very very famous cult. Mm-hmm. They rather erroneously claimed that they were the two members. I can't remember them.
Bo and Peep.
But what?
Bo and Peep is what they renamed themselves to.
So, what, yeah.
Oh, ain't that fun?
Or
Explain
Team
Heaven's
Bo.
Gate a bit.
Okay, so Heaven's Gate is my favorite cult. Just because they weren't really violent. Yes, people died, but it was totally self-inflicted.
Consensual. So.
Yeah, it's at least consensual. Mm-hmm. Now, depending on how you describe mind wiping. Anyway,
right.
It was conceived of by a music teacher whose last name was Applewhite, and he ended up having a psychological break and going to a mental institution where he met, I can't remember her name, his wife, who was a nurse there. And they fell in love, and they both had this love of science fiction and scripture.
Bonnie Nettles.
Bonnie Nettles, there we go.
Boom!
So they decided that, they were both the reincarnation of Jesus Christ, and then kind of smashed New Age alien stuff into it, and built this ideology. You can't even really call it an ideology, like just a doctrine of transubstantiation, and like your body is not you. Your body is just your vehicle, and they start referring to their bodies as vehicles.
It's a xenological brain fart.
Yeah, it had some of those elements of Scientology, where aliens and this kind of thing, and it was kind of self-help. We're going to try and get you to the next level, which is with their idea of heaven,
where you basically become a plant, where you subsist off of sunlight and don't have anything to desire.
Yeah, and a big part of that was removing human desire. So quite a few members of Heaven's Gate ended up castrating themselves. It started with one nurse who was there was like, I could do it, and then that almost killed a guy. So then they just started going to Mexico to get that done.
Big stupid Buddha.
For a while they were in like this homeless phase, where they were cruising around picking up members as hobos, and
I wouldn't really call it hobos, because I think they're more like they rent vans and stuff like that, because hobos strictly ride the rails. These were bums.
So
okay,
we're talking about like Bo and Peep's like roadside bonanza.
Yeah.
Yeah. Bo and Peep's roadside bonanza of castration.
Tea and dough.
Tea and dough, but they also had Bo and Peep.
Okay.
That was
Tea and dough.
yeah, beginning end.
Right.
Alpha, Omega, I am Alfarius, that kind of crap.
But I'm going somewhere with this. Well, they got a lot of vagrancy charges in this particular segment of their history, so they always carried $5 worth of quarters to pay off a vagrancy fine or use the phone, because cell phones were a thing, so they need quarters. Eventually, they got a hold of the internet and got pretty good at web development.
When did this stuff take place?
Well, it started in the 1970s, but it continued for a while. And once they started doing like web development, one, they got more members, because the internet allowed them to talk to all sorts of desperate people all over the place.
And a shitload of money.
Two, they got a bunch of money from web development. Like a lot of sites in the 1990s were developed by the Heaven's Gate cult.
I suppose you call them tech priests then.
You might be able to call them tech priests. Well, Bonnie Nettles died, which really threw a wrench in the doctrine.
From cancer.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the Bryans.
And they just totally took care of themselves. Bonnie Nettles' family never found out that she died. They didn't tell her family nothing like that. I was watching an interview with her sister who's like, I didn't find out till like 6 years later.
Wow. But that is the nature of cults, though. I mean, there are people who
Very insular.
who are very
Well,
yes. They have
that's
to be isolated
yeah.
from their family members, or it wouldn't
Part of
happen.
destroying social safety nets.
Yeah.
The only people you can rely on is the cult.
Yes, and that's how they keep them there.
Yeah.
By that isolation.
That's actually part of the indoctrination phase.
Exactly.
They at first they let you in, they're accepting, then they love bomb, full acceptance. They love you, but these people don't love you. They isolate, they tear apart this, like I said, the safety net, or like everyone said, the safety net.
They show you this idealized. This is what friendship should be. So it makes the friends that you had outside of the cult just seem like, well, that's not real friendship. If this is what real friendship is in the cult,
It's not.
but going on with the
Especially when
Heaven's
there's
Gate,
like extreme beliefs, and your friends are
Yeah.
like, I don't
Occasionally,
know.
yeah,
They're like, see, they're not
Amway tapes.
believers.
Right.
Occasionally a good friend slaps you in the fucking face.
So Bonnie Nettles died, which threw a big wrench in the doctrine because they weren't supposed to die. They were supposed to be immortal beings.
Did Jesus bits.
So it changed from physical living forever is what you can do to, well, she just left her vehicle. She's still living forever, and she's going to go to the next level with the rest of us.
where you become
And
a
then
plant.
the Hale-Bopp comet came around.
Which was supposed to be part of their spaceship that was going to come
Yes.
pick them up.
There, in the tail of the comet of the tail of the Hale-Bopp comet, which I remember seeing as a kid.
That was
That
Hale-Bopp.
was really cool. There was allegedly a UFO that was going to take their souls to the next level.
Okay.
So they had to get this done in a certain time frame, and they needed to shed their vehicles. They also had weird naming conventions in the cult. I can't remember them off the top of my head.
Doe. They all had to come like some stupid thing.
Their names had to end with O. Mm-hmm. Anyway, so the time came that they all recorded goodbye messages to people outside the cult who they still had contact with, and Applewhite recorded his rant. Very friendly but weird rant. I mean, if you were to record it on a modern camcorder or modern recorder, he might not look as crazy, but he had serious cannibal eyes going on,
Well, one of our
staring
sponsors,
right into the camera.
if I recall, one of our sponsors actually had a bit of a rant that was a little more coherent. What was that? Muppets Take Jonestown, I believe.
Yes, there was a sponsor. It was for a film.
Oh yeah. They
Muppets Take Jonestown.
Coming out Christmas. Not this Christmas, but Christmas.
we've already seen it. We're very blessed. Great film. You can definitely look forward to it.
So the time
At
came.
Christmas.
The time came for them to exit their vehicles, and the way they decided to do this, which was not like everyone forced to go drink Kool-Aid or hey, pass the shotgun around.
It was Flavor Aid at Jonestown.
What they did was they went in 3 shifts where everyone would eat barbiturate-laced applesauce and then wash it down with vodka. Then they'd put a bag over their heads, and then the shift that was going to go next would make sure that they died, and then they'd put purple shrouds over them. And they were all dressed in tracksuits, wearing Nikes. The tracksuit thing, I don't remember. The Nikes was because they just got a good deal on the shoes.
I'm pretty sure that was also the case with the tracksuits, just because, well, for fuck's sake,
No, there was a reason for the tracksuit. I just can't remember what it was.
because they look closest to like Starfleet uniforms. I don't know.
So they went in 3 shifts, and then the last people who killed themselves, they didn't get the purple sheets on them. There are still 2 survivors, active members of Heaven's Gate.
Actually,
They were tasked by Applewhite to keep the website going for the next 38,000 years
hold on, Garrett.
when the Hale-Bopp comet comes back around.
Garrett, it just occurred to me. Maybe they're just
Or was it
being-
2,000 years? Anyway.
Perhaps they've gone to Slavic heaven and they're just very cheeky-breeky. The tracksuits?
I get it, Nick, but you're reaching, bud.
Oh, okay. Maybe the real heaven is just fucking Ukraine, apparently.
So that Heaven's Gate is my favorite cult because it's so out there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's pretty bizarre. And it
And
fits.
there are still 2 active members
Yes,
of this, right?
and
Okay.
all they do is maintain the website.
Yeah, that's what they do.
They've been tasked with maintaining the website until the next time the Hale Bob comic comes around. And
Because
then
they will live until that happens.
So this website.
Oh,
That
no.
is what they believe.
I'm pretty sure they'll keep.
They're
Maybe.
kind of going with the reincarnation thing on this one.
Okay,
Because
gotcha.
their spirit will go into the next person to maintain the website.
Right.
I mean, imagine you are given a holy mission to be tech support. I mean,
Again, tech priests.
Hell with the bandwidth.
Well,
I'm proud of that.
yeah, that definitely fits the definition of a cult in every single way.
Okay, so I think we've kind of nailed down essentially what is required to have a cult. So we need a charismatic leader. We need
non-falsifiable doctrine.
non-falsifiable doctrine.
Falsifiable. Thank you.
See, some of the other ones, like I don't think it necessarily has to be religious exactly.
No.
I think when we're talking about, when they say religious, what they're, it's probably getting more at was like Jenn was talking about, where it's like we have a system that gives you access to this good thing at the end if you do what we tell you to do. And that's not necessarily religious.
It doesn't have to be
It can be a promise
mystical
of wealth.
of any sort.
I
I mean, or as fitness. I mean, it could be just a promise of you're going to feel better, you're going to look better, you're going to lose the weight. How many diets have people done where, they really bleed into that and then they don't reach those goals?
Your life will be better. Society will be better.
Commit themselves.
It's honestly,
That's an apt way to describe it.
yeah. And you can apply it outside of yourself because once you,
I mean, maybe just the promise of feeling better. I mean, it can be feeling better in so many ways, but feeling better in health or wealth or
Maybe
a
a-
higher
yeah.
self.
Maybe a
Providing
good
something
way.
that's missing in your
Yeah,
life.
I mean that is what they're vulnerable to. I mean they're missing something in their life. If it's if they're searching for the religion and they're not satisfied with it, or a lot of them are just searching to be accepted by a group.
They're looking
it-
to fulfill some need.
I was going to say, is
Yeah.
it really so much a gain of something good as it is an eradication of all the bad?
I mean, consider the cheeky
I
guava.
think that's
little,
what it kind of gets.
Little column A, little column B on that one.
The idea is that they latch on to something that you feel is lacking in your life, i.e., the cheeky guava,
Cheeky guava.
Che Guevara.
Okay.
I honestly don't think he really needs to have his. Actually, it was
In order
meant
for
as-
us to understand what you're saying, we need to know what you mean.
well,
We need context.
Che Guevara was actually meant as an insult. Little gorilla. That's what it translates to. Meaning he wasn't meant to be anything important, anything big. But he became a very large thing that was based off of creating something that people lacked. I think he would be very suited as a cult leader and has been immortalized as such.
So what would his cult have been? Go into
Marxism.
Che Guevara a little bit.
A cult of Marxism.
Yes,
Not
The
that
idea-
Marxism in and of itself is a cult.
a cult of Marxism.
Although, depending on how it's implemented, yeah,
Well, yeah, it can.
it'll share a lot
Specifically-
of...
But so can a lot of
as-
other ones.
Yeah.
But
You could have a cult of capitalism. I
Yeah.
think there was one. It was not documentary, a Netflix documentary, Wild Wild Country. The
I
cult
didn't
there
know
was
I did not see that.
it was kind of focused on capitalism and free love, which
Those don't work.
I don't get it. But if they you go do you
capitalism, and then immediately the word after that is free. I'm starting to question. I'm
right.
starting to question this.
In fiction, an example of a cult of capitalism would be from BioShock, aka Rapture. That is an entire civilization that has been constructed off of a cult of personality that is built on the cornerstones of capitalism and objectivism.
That's something similar to that in another game that came out relative. I actually played the whole game, and now I can't remember what it was called. You played a little bit of it too. It's where the captain of the ship dies.
The Outer Worlds.
Yeah, Outer Worlds. Yeah, there was definitely some areas that felt kind of cult of capitalism in that game.
Yeah.
In fact, the very first town that you land in kind of has that feeling to it.
Yeah, that was supposed to be tongue in cheek. That was part of the joke. Mm-hmm. BioShock, it wasn't a joke.
It was played fairly straight.
So, what do we got on time right now?
Potato.
It might be time for a break.
Sorry, audience. This takes a minute. I gotta wake my phone up. We're right at 20 minutes. That's about right. We usually try to go every 20 minutes or so. All right, so we're going to take a break, have a word from our sponsors, and come back.
When we come back, we're going to talk about why you would want to start a cult.
Big money.
Are you kids ready to learn historical fabrication?
I'm former President Richard Nixon, and I have the perfect toy for the curious, industrious child. Nixon logs.
Your children will love the excitement of putting together the pieces of Nixon's logs. Mr. Nixon, what makes your logs better than the logs of previous presidents?
My logs will teach your children the joy of good old-fashioned craftiness. And unlike other wooden logs, my synthetic logs aren't crooked. Build your cabin in 18 and a half minutes or your money back.
Woodward and Bernstein present 42 tapes of Watergate, as captured on the audio logs of Nixon's White House.
Now, wait a minute. What? Not again!
Pick up Nixon logs at your local retailer. And remember, if you don't have Nixon, you don't have Dick.
And we're back. Okay, so now we're going to kind of dive into what are the benefits of starting your own cult? Like, why would you want to do that?
Power, money, sex.
All right, next topic. All right, let's dive into that a little bit. Let's start with the most obvious one, sex. We'll work backwards.
Okay.
So sex. How do you have sex with a cult?
Well, if you're the cult leader, you have sex with the entire cult.
Yep.
Except the ugly ones.
Except the ugly ones.
Unless you're into that, then by all means, buddy, dive right in.
That's what the drugs were for.
That doesn't quite pan for the exact example you presented as a cult in the last segment.
Was that pun intended? The pan pun. Pun.
Well, I think it'd be funner if it wasn't intended.
Go on, just go on.
The idea was...
Okay, in that particular cult, yeah, there wasn't a lot of sex going on. But if you look at most other cults, I'm thinking the Branch Davidians, Shinrikyo,
were they into big sex stuff?
The leader got to have sex,
but no one else did.
I don't know about the lower guy, but it's like you pleased the leader. You had a religious and moral obligation.
Okay, so how do you maximize that? Because I'm thinking, okay, if you're starting your own cult and you want like all the sex, maybe you're the only person they can have sex with, and outside of you, they have to remain entirely celibate.
That would be like Branch Davidians.
Okay.
David Koresh, as he put it, I take on the burden of sex for the whole community.
Our hero.
Yeah.
Yes.
No, at that point he becomes essentially the sin eater for the entire community.
Yeah, that's how he was trying to phrase it.
As in, sex is inherently sinful, thus, I, as the prophet, utterly divorced of sin, can have sex, come unto me, come into me, come on to me, and thus, you will be saved and pretty relaxed, I guess.
Or in opposing the children of God who believe to have sex, with anyone and everyone that you possibly could.
Yeah, to bring more people into the cult.
With their flirty fishing.
And you can't say that isn't an effective tactic.
All right, so explain flirty fishing for the audience here.
Flirty fishing was a thing that Children of God did where the females would go out into the bars in the local town and they would dress sexy and they would use their womanly vessels to lure men into either paying them as donations or recruiting them into the children of God. And
Cult sirens.
They use this for various ages. Young girls would make tapes dancing lewdly, undressing their clothes, and they would distribute these for the purpose of gaining money.
Huh. That's actually what I'm pretty immune to.
For the young girls, they didn't know anything different. Their moms were doing it. Everyone in their group was doing it, so it didn't seem wrong. They didn't know any better. They're 4 or 5.
Yeah. Man is not made with a moral sense. You acquire it. So.
And it was pretty
that's a whole
much
other podcast.
It is.
Including in the group. I mean, not just flirty fish. That was, kind of outside the group, but inside of the group, in the Children of God, the men were able to ask for sex from any female in the group. It didn't matter what age they were, and if they refused, they were shunned. They had to accept any advances.
I don't normally do this, but I think I need to pray. This is just horrible.
This is pretty awful. Okay, so, but we're trying to make a case for why you might want to do this.
Right.
So,
well, if you're getting the sex and you don't care about anyone else,
Right.
I mean, chances are if you're starting a cult, you're in it for yourself.
Yeah, in all likelihood, you're a malicious. No. What's the word? Malignant narcissist.
Malignant, that would be good.
Yeah.
Basically, a cancer upon humanity.
So if you're starting a cult, we're going to start from the basis that, you're in it for yourself, and you're going to do some distasteful things. So
make your peace with it.
Yeah, make your peace with it, and go get some poon, guys.
All right,
by building your own cult.
Right. Okay. So that's the sex part, and that's a pretty easy one.
Big.
Now we sort of segued into the next one with the Children of God, the money.
Hot dash.
So how do you make that? That coin.
May I?
Go for it.
Well, obviously, the first starting point is donations. Or you find a side business that is just affiliated with your cult. Now, the obvious starting point is not really crime, but pseudo-crime, which is pyramid schemes. You provide them with some kind of health benefit.
Okay, well, you're talking about just the structure of it, though. So
yeah.
Okay, so but a pyramid scheme. Okay, maybe that's not a bad way to look at. I think what you're probably talking about.
Yeah,
but
yeah. Sorry.
You go out, you recruit people, you tell them to do this thing and this thing and this thing in order to climb up the ladder.
Well, I didn't really phrase that correctly.
With the Children of God, they would use also the children as a choir, and they would get gigs around town that they would promote their music, which also is a recruiting tool, but they would have these small children go out and perform in the town and get donations that way.
Yeah, and if I were to start a cult, I wouldn't demand donations. I'd get you into some, hey, I want to talk about this thing that could potentially revolutionize your life. Here's my lecture. It's totally free. Here's some brownies. Here's some sweet soda pops for you to drink. Some punch.
Right.
Whatever. Come on in.
Kool-Aid? Is it Kool-Aid?
I mean...
Not at first.
I feel like it's been done.
Okay.
Then you give the lecture, and did you like the lecture? Consider donating. I've done something for you if you want to do something back. Very soft power.
Social pressure.
Okay.
Right.
A little bit of I've done this for you. You should give back to me because we've already given all of this to you for free.
Yeah, social pressure.
Quid pro quo.
Well, I've messed
The
up
soft
on
sell.
I messed up on the starting point, but I've experienced that exact same thing when I got an interview with a certain company that sold supposedly indestructible knives. They brought me in out in Carmel, a certain town in the Midwest, to any listeners. They had cookies, they had punch, and they started selling me on the idea that I could make a lot of money if I stuck with them. They showed me, oh, these are very good knives. See, I am scoring this iron bolt. But here comes...
Never mind. That was going to get real dark real quick. Just keep talking.
I am cutting this iron bolt, and here it cuts through a rope just as easy. And here's a tomato. Goes just as easy.
Okay, they have good knives.
Here's my understudy.
So is
the
more
idea-
like a promise that you're going
Yes.
to make this money because of
Yes.
this.
This is a pyramid scheme.
Right.
The promise is
this is
that
a less
you will prosper.
religious.
Yeah, but the real money in a pyramid scheme is not in selling the actual product, it's in recruiting other people to sell the
Yes.
product.
Yeah, because in a pyramid scheme, the identifiable part of that is that you have to buy the product before you sell
My
the
parents
product.
did
Exactly.
Amway,
Mine did too.
and they did it for.
And,
I mean, they would show these pictures of the team leaders and all their nice cars and
My dad
fancy houses.
Still talks about. Every once in a while, if we bring up Amway,
would
it's like, that was a
have-
good deal. It's like,
Boxes of product in the house to be like, sample this, sample that.
And I
it's
used
just-
the knives they, marketed. They were fucking garbage.
see, at least they could have been good knives.
Yeah,
Oh.
If you're going to start a cult, at least, sell a good product.
right.
Something I could get behind.
I mean, at least with the Church of God, you could get, something.
all the sex.
Anytime you ask.
Toddlers.
If you're a dude. I mean, you don't have to ask the toddlers.
Close your eyes to pretend something
They don't
else.
know any better.
I could see being like part of like the FBI or something and starting a cult like that just so you can identify pedophiles. I mean, maybe that's probably
Right.
entrapment,
Send that to them.
but
They might appreciate it.
I wouldn't be surprised if the FBI's tried that in the past.
I'm sure they
Right.
probably have something along those lines. What the hell where were we going with this? What were we talking
money.
about?
Well,
Money.
The things that they promise. Now we've gone
Well,
over money.
we talked about the things that they promised, but you're trying to make the money.
Right. Why?
Well,
why you?
again,
How do you make the money without having everybody else make the money and
Right.
them being okay with that?
well, we always touch on that because the idea is you buy their product to sell to other people, and you recruit other people to sell that product.
But not all cults have a product.
No, all cults have a
They all
product.
do.
Well, you know what I mean. Though.
It's just an ideological product.
Okay.
The idea is
But the cult leader
Salvation.
doesn't need all that stuff. He already has that. He's the one trying to sell it.
No, he wants that stuff.
he wants the money. He wants
No, I'm talking
everything
about
else.
if the product that he's selling is an ideology, then he doesn't need the product. He's not trying to get.
No, he doesn't need the product.
If he's
he
not
ha-
selling something that makes money, actual money,
He has
what is
the
he
product. He sells it.
Well, he still wants the money.
So he's selling an ideology, and a lot of them ask their people to give up all of their
Yeah, all their stuff.
exterior.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what they're getting, if it's selling an ideology, is going, you need to give me all of your money
Denote everything.
because you don't need it anymore.
Yeah.
It's not important to your growth. So if you're selling
Give it to the church.
Yeah, I mean maybe they you need to get rid of this boat. You don't need this boat anymore.
Heaven's
so
Gate.
We're gonna take it for you.
You know who needs this boat? The aliens.
Heaven's Gate. They specifically told their members to sell off all of their worldly possessions and
What
either
does-
give the cash.
Scientology.
Jim Jones did the same thing.
What
Scientology
does Garzak need with a
uses books.
speedboat?
Scientology sells books to their followers to make money.
true.
They sell classes to their followers to make money.
And you
They
got to pay a
take-
certain amount to go up the next.
You have to keep paying more
level.
and more and more and more until you don't have a house on the outside and you're staying in the what do they call it, the sea
I've seen
Oh,
the LA
the-
location.
the-
The big blue
the Sea
building.
Org.
Yeah, until you're living in the Sea Org.
Yeah, until you're living in the Sea Org and you're wearing a uniform. You don't need anything else, so you might as well sell off all your possessions
Fuck that. Tom Cruise
and
still has a
give
house in
us
Beverly Hills.
that money.
Well, celebrities have different status
Yeah.
in
Yeah.
Scientology.
They're more used as a tool to recruit.
Yeah.
See how this all-powerful and great person that you admire as an actor and see they believe
And
it.
they chose Tom Cruise.
Well, first it was
I don't
John
know if they
Travolta.
were very picky. It was
True.
just
And Travolta still got in there, but he didn't.
George Clooney actually beats the shit out of him because he actually lives like a fucking super spy.
and Tom Cruise has been in it for a long time without anybody really knowing it.
Had been until he publicly announced it.
Right.
Very, very, very
And
publicly.
sort of assaulted Oprah Winfrey
I mean, with his smile.
and jumping on her fucking
That
couch.
great big toothy crooked smile.
I still remember the Sith lightning edit.
Yes.
But yeah, you get them. You don't need your money anymore. You know, just give it to the church.
Right.
Okay.
Give it to the cult.
Or you
our
need to buy these
grandmother do
books
that?
so that you can better yourself.
Right. All the information. It's going to be
It's
better
in
if you
this.
read it yourself.
Right. So we
That
need
way-
you to pay
Right.
hundreds of dollars for you to get these books.
Thousands.
Well, yeah, I mean, I'm sure increases as you get higher into the cult.
Hell, I think I kind of think the idea of someone going full pirate on all those secret, texts, just letting them out on the internet would be very fun.
If you could find somebody willing to do that. I mean, my suspicion is that anybody who has access to that particular archive is probably
Deep in it.
in either very, very deeply in deep belief of it, or threatened to the extent that they would never.
Well, here's a challenge.
Now,
that I'm-
it's always better to get somebody to believe what you're saying than it is to threaten them.
yeah.
Because as soon as they have nothing to lose, they don't care anymore.
well,
Well-
to a point. To a point.
They believe they're also losing the chance to, go on to the next life. I mean, that's what the promise is, at least in Scientology, is that you're going to move up.
Well, I'm going to save that for the next segment, but after a certain point, it stops mattering if you actually believe what the cult's pushing.
So,
But
Okay.
So then we were talking about, are you talking about like as far as social pressure and
Yeah,
peer pressure?
it would-
I mean,
if-
that's everybody that's in the cult, even if you don't believe anymore,
every
you're not going to let them down.
every single social connection that you have is inside the cult.
Yep.
And if you
Especially
do
at
something
that
that
point.
isn't in line with the cult, you risk losing everything you have.
Which is interesting because
Every
that's
friend.
really the one thing we didn't talk that much about in the first segment, which is the importance of a sense of community. Because that's how you get anybody into anything. Literally anybody into anything. And that is probably the easiest way to start a cult. Create a sense of community, and you can get people to believe anything.
Yeah,
To be a part of anything. And then, like you said, it doesn't even necessarily matter whether or not they believe it, because the sense of community that they have in that group of people becomes something that they cannot imagine severing themselves from.
Right.
It's like losing an arm.
Sense of community and also peer pressure from that community. I mean, the pressure of not fulfilling what you promised to be or do.
the community keeps you from leaving. The peer pressure keeps you doing things.
Huh.
Like, I don't want to till the dirt today. Well, all these other people want you to do it. Okay, well, I want to leave. I don't want to leave. I'll leave everyone that I love.
Huh.
I don't want to be branded,
Yeah.
but I promised I would, so I should probably do what I said I was going to do.
So power.
Oh yeah, that's the biggest. That's
This
the
will be the
We are
biggest.
kind of touching on power.
Draw.
Boom. That's
Already.
the biggest draw to starting a cult.
All right. So, how do you get the power?
Well,
First, you get
first you get the drugs, then you sell the drugs, then you get the money, then you get the power, then you get the women.
okay.
Yeah.
I was leading into the Scarface quote there.
Is there like a certain amount of power that you have to already assume that you have to even start a cult, though? I mean, that's that narcissism. Like to go, I am all powerful.
See, that's the interesting question.
That's where it kind of starts, doesn't it?
That's the
Like,
interesting question.
I am the prophet of God.
Right.
And you should. So, do you already feel like you have that power?
I don't
Or do
think
you
we know.
find it somewhere?
The noodly appendage has touched me.
I don't think we know. I don't feel like I know whether or not some of these cult leaders actually believe the shit that were selling.
Yeah, that you'd have to really.
it's hard to
You'd have to
say.
do some serious dissection
Do
of
they
their own
believe
lives.
it,
Right.
or do
I
they
would
just want other people to believe
Right.
it to gain?
I feel like
followers.
it's probably a good not guess, but you know what I mean. A good assumption that they're kind of on that weird line between believing it and knowing that they're full of shit.
Right. That's that ego, not letting themselves fall into. Well, I know I'm full of shit, but look at all these people that believe me. That gives
Right.
you power. I mean, from being with a narcissist,
It's like a roller coaster, like a runaway.
they need people to believe what they're saying so that they can believe it themselves.
Right.
Well, only a bad part of myself here. Part of the art of lying is convincing yourself the lie is true, so that when you tell it, it is as sincere as possible. You believe it yourself, so everything in your body language and what you say is true.
You have to first convince
You
yourself.
have to convince yourself.
And the more times you repeat the lie, the more it reinforces it.
Yes.
Yeah.
And through that, you can create an utter falsehood.
Well, and is that, a mental thing, is that a mental even disease of, falsifying your own reality of who you are.
That's another part of cults that I think we should talk about on that one.
Falsifying reality.
In order to really make a cult, you have to create this separate reality.
Yeah.
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 Well, and I think the victims of cults, too, and I call them victims on purpose because that's what they are. I think the victims of cults are, in themselves, have some kind of mental illness. A lot of them do. They're easily manipulated. They are maybe structurally unsound. They have the ability to
Structurally
be
unsound?
influenced.
I would say one of the biggest draws is a inferiority complex. They want to be different. They don't want to be like the rest of the herd. They feel there's something different about them that they need to express.
Right. Or be accepted by others who are also different.
Yes.
That's that group.
Yeah, building that sense of community.
Yeah.
Yes. Outcasts kind of gather together. Unfortunately, that also means that they can also be picked up by people who are charismatic and,
Someone who gives them a sense of importance and promises in the world.
yes, and also will take everything they have.
And then as far as like how do you exercise power as a cult leader? Because having power and knowing how to use it is two different things.
Again,
Right.
well, again, that's how you get the first two things we talked about. Power is a means to an end.
What's the end, though? That's the thing.
Well, that's the question.
Because if you're the cult leader and you've come up with this big... See, it's hard for me to entirely believe that a cult leader who has come up with this alternate sort of branch, this alternate reality, we'll call it. It's hard for me to believe that that person can 100% believe what they've done. Because they were the ones that created it. Right? I mean, you can't get away from that. I mean, you can... I would say that part of what causes the sort
If
of...
they believe they created it, they might believe they discovered it.
Maybe. But I feel like part of
a lot of them do believe that they've been spoken to by higher beings.
True.
Well, that's what they say. But I think it's hard... Maybe it's a chicken-egg issue about whether or not the psychosis comes before the idea or after the idea, because it might just be the case that...
Little column A, little column B, I'd say.
Right, they started coming up with this idea, and then as they continued to have to lie about it, and they started to convince themselves that it was true, the harder they had to try to convince themselves that it was true, the more the psychosis started to get to them, because they know that they're full of shit. And that may seem simple, but that can cause some serious, serious dysphoria.
See, I don't necessarily
in a person
think... I
is
can't...
bullshitting.
I can't totally 100% say these people know they're full of shit.
Right.
I can't.
I don't think they've convinced themselves, just as they've convinced everyone else, that this is exactly what is going to happen. This is exactly where they need to be.
Or it's not really a cult, but as an example, the Doomsday guy in 2011, who thought the world is going to end on this day.
The whole Mayan calendar thing?
Yeah, no, it's not the Mayan calendar. The
thought
guy
that
who
was the
went through
2012 thing.
who went through the Bible and applied all this.
Oh, the stupid mathematics?
Yeah, not great mathematics, but he applied numerology to the Bible, and it's like the world is going to end on this day. I've done the numbers. It's totally true. I can't say that guy's crazy, and I can't say that he invented this.
Right.
He's misguided.
Or conspiracy theories. I mean,
right,
you can't say that they've pulled it together, and in some way, that in their mind, that works.
Well, it's not an unreasonable methodology. It's just was the methodology actually performed properly? I would say that maybe that's the issue. Like that's not an unreasonable methodology for. I would say a reasonable person could do that.
Yeah.
And come to a conclusion that may be false, that they are convinced of because they actually have this, they've gone through this methodology and actually has made things make sense.
And then in the case of a cult leader who comes up with this doctrine that they might very well fully believe. And then as people join, it's like, well, it must be true. People are listening to me.
Yeah. You get that positive reinforcement.
Yeah, it's a feedback loop.
Yeah.
So the more people who join, the more true it must be.
And then there's also attached to that the fear of being of revealing that you're not sure.
I mean, imagine the...
Like once you get enough people following you and they believe you, there's a part of you that becomes afraid of being wrong. Like so afraid that you're willing to lie and continue lying if you start to feel like maybe what you were saying was bullshit.
Well, even if your followers begin to doubt you, a lot of them will start to create new stipulations or new rules, or I've had with like the letters, like
Or when Applewhite's wife died.
right,
Yeah.
he will change I said this, but now I've had a new communication, and this is really so. Any doubt that's created not only in their mind but in their followers' minds, they create a new manipulation. They create a new rule, or they create a new
Or you create a new branch
testament.
off of the cult.
Right.
Like what happened with the Branch Davidians. That started as a Seventh-day Adventist, which in and of itself is kind of culty. So there was a religious schism within the Seventh-day Adventists, and then a splinter group eventually turned into the Branch Davidians.
Well, I suppose the biggest proof in the pudding is whether or not they put Valium in it. Because whether the cult leader ends their lives when whatever doomsday prophecy they've put down,
If they have one.
if they have one,
Which
that is the ultimate proof. Because if they, just let their followers die, take all the money, and disappear into the ether, then, well, they obviously didn't care.
Well, and if
They were
that's
just huckster the entire time.
right, I was gonna say, and if that's the ultimate goal and they know it, then they know that they're full of shit.
Yeah, if that's the case.
Right.
If they're
But we
the-
do have cults where
if
the
they're the-
leader died because
Yeah.
he was a part of the cult.
If they're the first one to eat the pint or eat the apple juice or applesauce, they probably believe what they're pushing.
Right.
Like Applewhite.
Right.
Yes.
He was in the first shift.
I suppose that's true. I mean, proof is in the pudding. If the leader does the thing that he thinks is going to get people killed, then he probably believes what he's saying.
Right.
Well,
At least pragmatically enough.
Well,
There's no reason to question him.
or, and we're going to come back to Scientology on this one, L. Ron Hubbard. Dude was a huckster.
obviously.
I think he eventually died, but he tried to kill himself
Uh,
in the most Scientology way possible.
Did you know that he released a video on physics that was regularly ridiculed by every single physicist that ever read it?
I'm not surprised. All of his science books were
Just fucking comedy.
were so they were so off the mark you couldn't even call them wrong. It's like, all right, this is a
very
book
culty.
this is a book on nuclear physics. Why are you talking about spiritualism? We can't even say if this applies to nuclear physics or not because there's no physics in it. But yeah, he started after he founded Scientology, and they had their win against the IRS. I will give Scientology one good thing. They got the IRS backed up against the wall and like, okay, you've been doing some pretty shady shit, and we're gonna spill the beans on it. Mm-hmm. So they did that to get the religious, to get classified as a religion, so they didn't have to pay taxes.
They should just put
They
the
do
beans.
a lot of shady shit like that.
Oh, I know they do a lot of shady shit, but that's one
There
thing
was a
I
bit of
have to
Schadenfreude
give.
there.
Right.
Yeah, I have to give that to Scientology. You know, credit where credit's due. But L. Ron Hubbard suffered from some serious depression, and he decided he was going to kill himself. So what he wanted to do was have one of the e-meters that they use to measure your thetans,
Yeah.
and but build it in like a backward loop that would electrocute him. That was something that happened. It didn't work. He ended up dying of something else. I can't remember.
I'm
But
just going to call it the Hubbard taser.
ride the lightning.
The engrams!
Thetan level maximum. But in his case, I think some psychosis hit him, but he started to kind of believe what he was pushing, but I don't think he started off that way. Pretty sure Scientology was started on a bet against Asimov.
Yeah. That's like sort of the story that goes.
Yeah.
I would honestly prefer it if Asimov wrote a religion.
He did. You've not read the holy text of the Foundation series?
Oh, okay.
Psychohistory. Come on, man. All hail Harry.
I do believe in our dad's car, I made a very pointed joke, piece by piece.
That has... You're way off, buddy.
Oh, yeah, sorry. Damn it. To be
So
fair, that
anyway,
was
we have...
single digits, so bad memory.
We went on this path with trying to identify what the power benefits were of this. So I guess real quick, before we go to our next break, we need to determine, as far as the power benefits go, are there more if you believe your own bullshit or more if you are a huckster?
That's a double-edged sword, because if you don't believe your own bullshit and you have the power, well, you can use it more Machiavellian, in a more Machiavellian way to get what you want.
I feel like you could appreciate. There's an argument that you could appreciate the benefits that you're receiving more.
Right. But if you do believe your own bullshit,
You
then
will get more benefits, I believe.
You're less likely to get exposed.
Yeah, exactly.
Well-
Because you're going to benefit longer if you believe your
More
own
than
bullshit.
likely. Unless it's
Because
like a really fast
more people
doomsday
are going
call.
to feed into it. I mean,
you
it's
sure
that
about that, though?
confidence essence. Yeah, I mean,
Longer
absolutely.
though, because if you're going
Absolutely.
to drink your own Kool-Aid, it's not going to be any longer than if you just got all the shit and ran away.
Well-
I think it's longer because when you drink your own Kool-Aid, that's the end of it.
You'll definitely make more of a legacy.
But I think that if you believe people are so drawn to confidence. I mean, it doesn't matter what you do. If you are confident about what you're doing, people are drawn to that. You're going to get more benefit if you are confident and believe in what you're selling.
Well, I
think.
believe that is the very source of the word con man, as in a confidence scheme.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And I suppose the biggest benefit of having a bunch of cultists running around is, you can have them go into someone's bedroom with a knife.
I
Or
think
a
the
gun.
only time that if you're
Or a bomb.
confident and you end up drinking the Kool-Aid, it's because you feel backed into a corner. That's the only time a confident person is going, okay, I can't do it anymore because I've bullshitted people long enough and it's catching up to me. I think that's the only time a confident person is going to give in.
Well, but then that's the question between do they believe their own bullshit or do they not?
I think they
believe their own
absolutely believe it, but they feel threatened by something outside of their cult.
Well, they can also always,
Like
when
Waco.
they're pushed to the corner, the cops are coming in, the SWAT's, pointing the guns. They put down the glass of, poison flavor aid and say, "My God has spared me. I must spread the word further."
I don't think their ego would allow them to do that. They have to
I think it
feed
would.
into it constantly.
Because they're the prophet. Their
Yeah,
flock
they
has been
could make
slain.
Any terms
They need to
want.
find a new flock.
Right.
Yeah, as long as there are people still alive, there's always more flock.
That's true.
All right. Well,
Okay, so-
I think it's about that time.
All right,
We're
about
taking
time
a break here.
Taking a break. So when we come back, let's
Is it time to get into the nuts and bolts of how to build it?
I think so.
Yeah.
I think when we come back, we'll talk about how to actually go about building this. Now that we know that it's pretty sweet if you're a cult leader.
Yeah.
Yeah, the Arbitrarium's Guide to Cult Manufacturing.
Sex,
Yeah.
drugs, and rock and roll if you want it. I mean,
There's a cult I have. Yeah, a cult of rock and roll. Maybe we'll build that one. We'll see. Yeah, here's a word from our sponsors.
Your home is a trap for the dead. They cannot escape. They will not relent in your torment, but you can quiet them. For a time. Phantom Touch Ghost Masseuse is your only hope for respite. Our professionals are standing by to soothe these troubled spirits with fragrant ectoplasm massage to keep them appeased in their graves and out of your soul. Phantom Touch Ghost Masseuse. Ghosts are real, and they must relax.
And we're back. Okay, so now we're going to try and break down how to create a cult. Mm-hmm. Right? So I think we sort of committed literally just in the moment, spur of the moment, to creating the cult of rock and roll.
Right.
So let's go down that road. Let's dive in there. How are we going to do this?
So
What's the first thing we got to do?
Number one, you got to have a charismatic leader or idol or something that you follow.
Okay. Now, I think we determined, because we do talk between these breaks, that we're not going to choose a particular specific guy or girl of rock and roll, because we don't want to ostracize any of our listeners in one way or another. But, it's a blank. It's a Mad Lib. Insert your favorite person here.
If you're going to create the cult, if you're going to be the Ayatollah of rock and roll,
Let's just pause and appreciate that for a second.
I stole it from Mad Max. So.
Oh,
I mean,
that's right.
Yep.
All right, well.
Lord, humongous. What you want to start off doing is reading every self-help book you can. Learning how to be charismatic and having answers for everybody. And then you're gonna go to your recruitment. And what I'd recommend, if you're gonna start the cult of rock and roll, start going to rock concerts, and I'm talking, actual rock and roll. Go to fan clubs, get online, find some like-minded people who all like rock and roll. You go in there and you just start liking rock and roll right along with them, and you start handing out that self-help that you've learned. And you lead them with confidence. And you start building this splinter group from rock and roll.
Yeah, I think what's important is that brand identity.
Mm-hmm.
That, you're creating that desired image for your group. As you promote it, you create that propaganda, you create what a lot of them is called this big lie. That promise.
Yeah, the big lie. What are we selling?
Yes. That's what that charismatic leader is responsible for.
So what is it with rock and roll?
I don't know.
What are we selling? What are we selling?
well,
Something. I mean, I think a lot of them are selling a community.
Yeah.
well, one thing that a lot of religions have done is stealing from the faithful of one another. Judaism went into Christianity, went into Islam, and for rock and roll, you will steal a lot of people into the cult of rock and roll from...
Gospel.
Yes, gospel. And what came from gospel? Good old Elvis.
A lot came from gospel.
From gospel.
Between gospel
yeah.
and jazz,
Gospel.
that's how we got rock and roll.
Gospel, blues, that all turned into one,
Well, blues came from jazz.
Well, blues came from jazz. Yeah, it just kind of evolved
Arguably.
into this wonderful tree of music. But we're trying to turn this into a cult. Mm-hmm. So, that's going to get real evil pretty quick. So,
Okay, so how did we start this thing? So we went out and we recruited people. What are we telling these people? What are we selling them?
What are we promising?
Yeah, what's the
Community,
promise?
right?
We're promising them
First.
We're promising them good times.
first, community and good times.
Okay.
community, good times, and we're going to have rules on how to have good times and how not to ruin anyone else's buzz.
This is rock and roll, though. You better be real careful about starting with rules.
Always fry your sandwiches in bacon fat. You start with the small stuff, and
Well,
work
could they
up.
be?
Well, I mean, every group
anti-rules?
is going to have some conflict there, and all the rules they're just going to be there to cut down on the conflict. That's
Okay.
it.
So before you start making any rules, that shouldn't be one.
No, you didn't start making rules.
Well,
You started making a community.
Here's what I'm saying. Yeah. So the rules that start to come about, you need to wait until some conflict starts.
Yeah,
Exactly.
that's a
You
different
need
step.
you need to wait until the people.
I thought we were moving on to the next step.
Okay, well that's fine. So yeah,
So-
basically, if you want to create rules, what you want to do is you want to gather people, and then when they start having conflicts, it justify when they're begging for the rules. Then you
Yes.
start creating the rules, and then you can build your.
And you step in
Dogma.
as the magnanimous dictator.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay. Okay.
But I
i.e.,
think before you create those rules, you have to have that belief system. So,
What are the tenets?
what are
of
they
that?
believing? You
cult
know,
and rock
what
and roll?
what can we change in this group?
who is the
Or
avatar?
who are we promoting in this group, or what kind of thought process are we promoting in this group? They need that transcendent belief system. What are we promoting these people? Why should they be in our community?
Well, because we're trying to push that good times that rock and roll brings.
Yeah, and also
And anyone who tries to bring down your good time is a heretic.
yeah, and as the avatar of the good times, I suppose we have to present the, saints of rock and roll. You present them as avatars
I mean,
to
we
follow.
could possibly even be doing, I have a note here of like development change of culture. I think our culture is very more pop rap focused. So maybe our promise could be to bring rock back to the forefront of music.
There
Yeah.
you go. That'll do it.
Yeah,
Oh,
and
yeah.
it comes with a good mission statement too.
Hell, you'll get a lot of the older generation to be like, yeah, and they'll bring a lot of money to it.
Yeah. And then it's like, hey, would you donate to the Church of Rock and Roll? We just want to
We just want to bring rock and roll back.
right.
Power!
We're
We
sick.
just want to bring it.
We're sick of the wiggle. We want more journey.
Of the
We want
wiggle, like the Wiggles. Are we sick of the Wiggles?
I don't really know what fucking plays at bars nowadays.
It's
What's
not the Wiggles.
What is the one? Okay, what is that really obnoxious song they play for really fat women at
Wobble.
The Wobble.
the Wobble?
They've
Yes.
been doing that
Wobble
for
me,
years. Yeah,
wobble
that's
me.
yeah, that's
Yes. Abolish the wobble. We get
Yeah,
journey
I mean,
now.
or abolish.
Don't
you
stop
know,
believing
the
now.
TikTok trends, abolish the poppy dance moves and bring back rock.
yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Although, I don't know how much of an aside this is, but that one lady, she was a pop singer. She did. She had the whole moves like Jagger thing. What the Kesha? She tried to bring rock and roll back into pop and failed absolutely fucking miserably.
Heretic.
More of an apostate.
Yes.
Yeah,
There we
apostate.
go. We have an apostate. I'm starting to believe in this cult.
Yeah, and you're going to have the outsider.
Yes.
Because you need to be insular. You
Yeah.
need to keep your
You
own.
need a devil.
You need a
Need
devil.
an enemy.
Rap. Country.
You need to have something against which to keep yourself pure and your community pure.
Then
So
again,
in
country
that
does
sense,
is
we can bring back number 3. It's into system of control. So how do we control our rock followers to not be swayed into pop or rap? Because as they do, I mean, as pop and rap are more popular, I have seen a lot of meshing in between rock and rap.
if there is no guitar, do not listen.
But you can have
there is no
a rock
bass,
rap
do not listen.
that has guitar.
Does it have a bass?
Probably.
A
So
bass
we're
guitar.
gonna get into really weird, like there's gonna be this intersectionality of
Right.
And thus-
where
It's
do we
gonna be a
make
mess.
that system
Sectionary
of control?
violence.
Where
it's
do
got to
we
be simpler.
decide?
It's got to be more simple than that.
Where do we decide? Does it have to be like a structure of music. I mean, because
That's going to be
there's-
too
there's
complicated.
the
Well,
beginning and the
we're,
chorus.
we're
and,
still kind of talking about the scripture and doctrine there. It's not really the system of control. How do you control the people who have decided, yes, I want to bring rock and roll back,
Right.
and I'm going to give you everything I own to do this.
How do we do that?
Thou shalt not auto-tune.
No, that's still more doctrine.
Yes. I mean, you're
Still more
literally,
doctrine.
giving us some tablet bullshit.
So we want to focus on what tasks they need to prove to us that they
Right.
are rock.
Yeah.
Is it what you wear?
I
Is
think
it-
I think that's part of it. Yeah.
Part of it would be what you
How
wear.
much you're
Booze and
into
leather.
the lyrics of the songs? How much do we theorize of what they mean? I mean,
Can you name all the band members
Right.
of cult approved of scripturally approved bands?
Can you tell us who left and when and who they brought in to replace them?
Mm-hmm. When were their tour dates?
So we have history. We have quizzing, and we have those kind of, if you can't meet these stipulations, you need to be this kind of person.
Have you gotten wasted and rocked out to these songs?
No, that's hard to prove because in order to maintain.
When was the last
control,
time you blacked out?
There-
3 days ago. Whiskey shower. Now. They have a fire hose at the ready.
Oh my
You get to
god.
drink from the fire hose.
Oh my god, that gets so much worse.
But it has to be something that you can quiz them on and
Yeah.
prove it.
Yeah. There has to be some, you got to prove that you're rock and roll, right? So
Have you
Well,
shaped
and we
your...
also have to create the belief that we're making their life better.
Right.
Rock.
Did you like all that sex you had last night? Most of it. Yeah.
And then when they do
It got real
something
weird
that's
when the
not
goat came in, but
something that is, approved or something that they may feel uncomfortable with, you have to reward that sacrifice with praise. That creates that indoctrination into the group of, you did this, you got into that mosh pit even though you were scared,
Right.
and now you're in the group.
Do you
Because
now
you've
look like a...
created- You've done this task that we have made you do, and you've passed that test.
we have strongly encouraged that you do.
Right.
Because we don't make anyone do anything in the cult of rock and roll. We just
Right.
want them to do it because it's totally awesome.
Do you now look like a fat Lemmy Kilmister?
How much will you stage dive?
How hard will you stage
We have one of
dive?
those those swimming pool levels of diving boards.
Yeah. How high will you go?
Have you...
How many people
The
are you
true
willing to kill?
test of when no one catches you, are you still gonna jump?
Yeah.
Have you accelerated from a stage dive to a stage assault?
So
No,
I think
sir,
that
there
could
ain't
be
no
our method
people
of
down
control
there.
there.
Yeah, I mean,
Is we've got the quizzing, we've got the feats of courage.
But sir,
I
there's no
suppose.
crowd down there.
The feats
have
of
bad
courage
news
and
for you.
fealty. So you've got that system of control right there, and
Can-
if someone doesn't do it, well, they're an apostate.
Can you survive on the Lemmy diet? Which is nothing but beef, whiskey, and mushy peas.
But we need them to survive long enough to drink the Kool-Aid.
Again, you're getting more into doctrine there.
Yes.
No, this is a test of faith.
It's a test of constitution.
Oh, test of constitution and faith. I.e.,
You're locked in a room for 3 months with nothing but beef, whiskey, and mushy peas. If you survive, good job.
also maybe some fries. Or chips, as they call them.
And if you're talking about lemon, it's just pasted with Nazi paraphernalia
Oh, yeah.
as well.
Oh,
He was a big on that.
I mean, I think part of the system control too is also having that, vulnerability and something to hold against them.
Mm-hmm.
So, I think that system, as far as maybe not so much in rock and roll of like, oh, well, I also like this band who's not rock and roll. And you have those people that you admit that to, and then we go, well, you can't be like that.
You like
Okay,
motors.
so when you come to the
That
meeting,
vulnerability. I mean, that's how
Yeah.
you keep them in, is going like, we understand that this is how you used to be, but now you're like this.
Chad
Yeah.
likes Dave Matthews Band. We can't tell anybody about this.
You can admit it to us because admitting that you like Dave Matthews is going to move you further away from that and into rock and roll.
so yeah,
You move
it-
I
past
just imagine that whole scene playing out, and then it like pans over, and it turns out Dave Matthews is a member of the cult,
Yeah.
and he's just like,
I was thinking like, okay,
I'm
how
not
do
for
you,
everybody.
It's
How do
alright.
you prove? How do you hold that over them? You need to get the information first, right?
Mhm.
Well, it's like, hey, come to our little meeting here. What's on your iPod? Or
Right.
if anyone actually uses those things anymore.
What's on your phone?
What's in your
playlist?
Spotify? Yeah, what's
Yeah.
on
on
your
your
playlist?
iTunes. What you got in iTunes?
Yeah,
Oh.
just show us what you got there, and then you have that information. You can
Share
use
with
later.
us what
Right.
you enjoy.
Oh, look. He has a... Oh, man. Here's Bomber. Here's Overkill. This guy's way in a motor... Oh, wait. He has something by a Japanese pop music band. Oh, you ain't...
And then you can hold that
You ain't
against
rock
them.
anymore, boy.
Share.
Right. I mean, it's not
part of the
necessarily
elite.
about. It's not necessarily about making them feel bad because they don't like everything that you like. It's just that we're going to show you a better way.
Listen.
We understand
that's-
that you like this, and if you run away, we're going to tell everybody that you like this.
Let's
Yeah, at
show
the
up...
start, it's like it's not about that. But
Right.
once you're in, that's you've got that blackmail.
that control.
Yeah,
You've
yeah,
got
yeah.
blackmail.
Yep.
Let's show you baby metal, but we'll put this back here in our back pocket.
We'll put the we'll put your Coldplay aside, and here's some Dio
Exactly.
So, and
in
then
our back.
you've got some solid systems of control right there for the cult of rock and
They're
roll.
not cold.
Don't care.
And then wasn't there a system of influence?
Yeah, that's the last one, is
All
a
right.
system of influence, which it is pretty much means the elders of the group. The people who are going to go, this is the path, and they're going to create that personal bond with you. The people who are going to hold you accountable to the group.
Okay. The
priests.
It's hard for me to separate that from the control, because when I think influence, I think how does
the
your
council.
It's more of a
Soft
personal
power.
connection. So it's the control is the group. But the influence is that one-on-one personal connection of maybe the people that counsel you, or the people that when you have questions about the group, they're the ones that you go to. The people who have been in it a little bit longer than you have
Oh,
and
God.
aren't the leaders,
They're the RAs.
but they're the people in between who can answer some of the questions and kind of go, I did this and it was great for me.
Commissars.
I never lived in a dorm, so I don't know what an RA is.
Well, you know enough that's associated with dorms.
Rape agents?
No. Maybe in some cults.
Raging aardvarks.
That's better, so let's just go with that.
Racist Aryans
It's a bit of a...
on the nose.
I think
Rowdy
it's
acrobats.
more it's that
Redundant.
social pressure. It's that peer pressure. It's that one-on-one personal thing. Like we talked about with the girl with the burning. I mean, what was that?
Nexium.
Nexium. Where they,
Ask your doctor about Nexium.
it's that
If you recognize a burning
I don't want to
sensation,
do
go to a
this
doctor.
anymore. But I already told my closest friends in this group that I was going to do it, and I'm going to let them down if I don't.
Mm-hmm.
So you have other rockers in there that you respect, and you don't want to let them down. So you do the things that you wouldn't normally do. So what are some of the things that you wouldn't normally do that you would do in the cult of rock and roll?
AC/DC burns on your knuckles.
Well, I don't know. I can't put myself in that position. I can't get in that mind space.
Morning sacrament of
I mean, maybe
Peanut butter
drink
and,
more than you usually would.
Okay,
or
that's fair.
wear
Yeah.
certain clothing that you
Leather.
may not
I
usually
love leather,
wear.
though. I'm
I mean,
wearing
yes,
that,
but that may not be everybody's thing when they come out. Maybe some people are more grunge and they like to wear t-shirts and baggy pants. But when you're in the rock and roll cult, like many, there's a certain attire that you're supposed to wear. Like we talked about the tracksuits. I mean, they were expected to wear that because they were a part of the group.
motorcycle boots.
Yeah, I mean, do we wear Doc Martens? Do we, what's the protocol?
Shit kickers, man. Motorcycle boots, leather jackets.
You come in wearing ham shorts, you're getting thrown in the mosh pit.
What?
I'm already part of the cult then. Eh.
All right, so we've determined a few things, and well, where are we at right now? Are we actually dealt with the last question, didn't we?
Yep,
Or
that's
the last tenet.
So to build your system of influence, you kind of have, once people are fully initiated, they've done the 6-meter stage dive, then
Totally fucking wasted.
Well, then they become, the influence.
they become rock priests.
They become the recruiter for the new ones.
Yeah.
Yeah. Then you pump for money
right.
and new people
They're
for
the
money.
rock
ones you send
assistants.
off they're your missionaries.
Yep,
Yeah.
They're the ones who go to the rock shows and talk about how great this group is of fellow people who enjoy rock and want to bring it back into mainstream.
Mm-hmm.
They have pamphlets.
They set up the grills,
They bring the kegs.
Oh god, the kegs are probably the biggest
Probably
thing.
also bring some of the drugs too. I mean, that's going to get you.
Oh yeah, the drugs, obviously. Again, pointing into the idea that, yes, cults get into a lot of illegal shit.
Some
Well,
Heaven's Gate never really did anything that was illegal outside of vagrancy.
again, still legal. But Shoko, what was it?
Not very
On
rock and roll.
Shinrikyo, they went real legal. Jonestown went real illegal.
So, I mean, do we have a cult that we think would work?
Well,
Would this cult of rock and roll be successful?
Hell, I don't know.
I'd actually be curious of how to turn this.
I think it would, depending on the stipulations that you put. Because rock and roll is so about anti-rule that it would be hard to
that's
find the followers that would really be manipulated enough.
Well,
That's why I had the reaction I did when we started bringing up rules. Like, oh, wait a minute. I'm no
Yeah.
rock and roll guy, but I know. You
I
start
think that
bringing in
would
rules,
be. I think
that's
that'd
not
be the
rock and
hang
roll.
up. That would be the
That's
hang
not
up.
rock and
Is
roll.
that you want to be anti rock and roll, but could being anti rules unite you, and still being a group?
Right.
Some of the most-
Now, here's the way I'm looking at this. We're kind of rock and roll can be sort of synonymized, if that's a word, not sodomized, synonymized with confidence. Right, that's the thing. That's the thing that everybody, well, with coolness, right? But what everybody, like in the 90s, it was like trying to figure out what the hell cool was like this impossible task. It's not impossible. All it is confidence. That's all it is. That's all it's ever been. Is you're confident enough that it doesn't fucking matter what you do. If you're doing what you want to do, then you're going to look cool. It doesn't matter. And that's the same thing with rock and roll. So what I would say if I was going to start a cult of rock and roll, it would be having people, like the promise that I would make people is we're going to teach you how to be confident. It doesn't matter as much. We're not going to have so many rules. It doesn't matter so much what you think you should do. We're going to get you to be comfortable with whatever you want to do. And then we're going to slowly get you to do the thing that we want you to do.
Right. Creating that sense of community for the outcasts.
Right.
A community of confident rockers.
Hold
Yeah.
on. What do you think every single, motivational speech has been at... most motivational speech has been for the last, 20 years?
Building confidence.
Exactly. That's the point.
Yeah.
The cult is just, damn it, it's very widespread.
Would you like the notebook?
Hmm?
Would you like the notebook so you can write these things down? Write out the full sentences.
Sorry.
So yeah, I think if I was going to make a cult, that it would be a cult of rock and roll would be about building confidence. It sounds weirdly like self-help
I think
rock and roll bullshit.
every cult is about building confidence.
Yeah, it is. But with rock and roll in particular,
but
if you
putting
want to
your
be cool,
confidence in whoever's in charge.
In the group.
Yeah.
But see, that's the trick with this particular cult. The cult of rock and roll isn't, well, ostensibly, I'm going to end up squeezing that into every fucking episode we do.
Yep.
We make you think that it's about getting that confidence for yourself. We're not telling you to put all your confidence in me as the cult leader, which a lot of cults do, like explicitly. No, it's like, no, we're gonna teach you how to be cool. We're not going to use the word confident. We're going to use the word cool. We're going to use the word rock and roll in place of those things. Because everybody knows that feeling of rock and roll. The feeling of rock and roll is being confident.
So
That's what it is.
So you're Elvis impersonators.
Some of them, why not? I mean, you're not going to shun an Elvis impersonator in the cult of rock and roll.
Fuck no.
That would be heresy. So I'd say that's how you kind of start the cult of rock and roll, right? It's really a cult of being cool.
Mm-hmm.
You just don't necessarily use
and
those
accepted.
words. Yeah.
Because I think that's
Accepted
a big...
because you are cool.
Well, accepted because you're willing to be cool.
Right.
Because
Better way to
getting
put it.
into the group, you're not going to feel cool. That's the whole point of going, you're not cool right now, but if you join our group, you'll be cool. Because we'll teach you how to be that way.
Walking around in a leather jacket with a shredded, denim jeans, cool, because that's how you go.
It's a bit like Fight Club, actually, the more I think about it. Because
The
it kind of
first
starts
rule
with...
of Fight Club is you don't... So the first rule
Yeah,
of...
dispense with the bullshit.
Well, I mean, the whole point of Fight Club... I mean, have you read the book?
I actually have not read the book, to be fair.
So, at the end of the book... no, actually, at the start of the book, his foreword after Chuck, last name I can't pronounce.
Palahniuk?
Sure.
The big gay.
This book could have been Golf Club.
Mm-hmm.
It was an experiment to see what would happen if you had a set of rules that you always
Peanuts?
followed to the letter.
Got one?
Which really flies in the face of the no rules cult of rock and roll.
Right.
I like
So,
peanuts in the shell.
The Fight Club thing
I like food that's a
Doesn't-
puzzle.
doesn't doesn't match well to it. Just because of the underlying philosophy of why the book was written.
Right.
I mean, if you want to go the route of kill the author, then do what you will. But
Right. Well, okay. So, but the reason I said it was kind of like Fight Club is that the way that starts is that it starts as drawing men into this idea of counterculture, but it has a structure and it has rules. But they draw these guys in by setting up a structure that feels like it doesn't have really hardly any rules. Like, because they misconstrue the idea of chaos as being without rules. So you can even give them rules, and because chaos is sort of the order of the day every day, they still feel like there aren't any rules.
I don't know, man. Because, I mean, at the start of every Fight Club, what do?
They recite the rules.
They recite the rules of Fight Club.
Yeah.
What are they doing constantly?
But the guys that are standing there listening to those rules, they're not thinking about those rules. They're thinking about the guy that they're going to fight. They're thinking about that moment of chaos.
And then
That's what they're after. They'll obey the rules as long as they get that moment of chaos, as long as they get that catharsis. That's what the whole damn thing is about.
The whole thing is about gaining catharsis through combat. Consensual
and
combat.
what you're willing to do in order... Like what rules you're willing to follow in order to get... What long-term rules you're willing to follow in order to get that short-term...
This is why I come here.
That short-term catharsis, that short-term pleasure. That's what Fight Club is about. And that's kind of what you would have to do with the cult of rock and roll. They're going to be structured really, really similarly. It's about that sort of visceral joy of being immersed in the world of rock and roll.
Free.
Yeah, even when you're not. That's how you get... I'm saying all this because I feel like that's... Thinking about it in those terms is going to make it clearer how to create a successful cult of rock and roll. Because if we had chosen fucking anything else, it would have been easier, right?
Yeah,
But
thanks,
we had to... Yeah, it's my fault. We had to choose the one thing that's like, there are no fucking rules. Get drunk and have sex and do drugs and do all that stuff.
No,
I don't
there are
know why I
specific
chose
keys
this.
you follow in rock
Well,
and
yeah,
roll.
fair enough.
So
A good question is,
I mean,
can you turn a...
I knew never to get into a mosh pit.
can you
Why
turn...
not? They're fun.
Well, I'm
Because
a huge
as a
pussy.
female, I would get the shit beat out of me.
The trick
I'm a
is
dude
you
and I'd
keep
get the
your
shit beat out of me.
Keep the elbows
No,
out
they
in
would
front of you.
specifically go for the females. And I knew to stay out.
I mean, and you're kind of wee, so
That's
makes
not
sense.
exactly metal.
It was pretty. I didn't ever.
Now you're just
try,
trying to convince her to get into the mosh pit.
But I would watch other females get attacked. Pretty much.
That's not metal.
Metal
This
is
isn't-
chivalrous?
we don't. Okay.
Yeah.
It's not about metal. It's about rock and roll.
True.
Okay.
That's a whole other podcast.
Yeah.
part of a different
Yeah.
cult
It's
then.
becoming a trope. It's like we'll get into something. That's a whole other podcast.
Yep.
We have a lot
Part of a
tropes.
different
we have,
cult.
We have a lot of tropes in this podcast.
I don't even know what they are.
Here's a question. Can cults be turned towards a positive purpose?
I would say that there are cults that could be okay. Well, it
Salvation
depends on how
Army?
you define a cult.
Salvation
Because-
Army.
The Salvation Army? Well, I mean,
I think the idea is that they are doing good. That's the whole point.
they don't have one guy at the top
Who's
saying
hoovering up everything?
that's the thing. Yeah, I was like,
Yeah.
I know there's a difference. I had to figure out what it was.
My God,
Who's hoovering up everything? I like that.
the NRA has become a cult.
Yeah,
The guy who's in charge of it was just taking money and going on fucking safaris and all this stuff. It's like, that's not what we were paying you for, buddy.
no.
So,
Hey.
GOA, down with the NRA.
Yep. Fuck 'em.
All right. So
2A, down with the NRA.
where are we now then? So we seemingly successfully created the cult of rock and roll.
Well, we haven't field tested it yet.
True,
That's the fact.
but that's
there's-
we can't do that on.
Next time on the Arbitrarium.
We're gonna hit the
We'll
streets.
introduce you to our new members.
Next, we'll enjoy some sectarian violence.
Not yet. I mean, you got to wait for that. That's down the road. We got to get
That's
people
later.
Well,
Yeah. And I don't see the cult of rock and roll having the doomsday thing going on.
Probably.
now tell me. Do you hail Elvis over Freddie Mercury?
Now we get into
That's
nuance.
more
there. I mean,
doctrine, buddy.
And
Exactly. Hence, sectarian
I think
violence.
it's really more pop rock. I would say.
and
than
now,
rock and
sectarian
roll.
violence.
Although they had some rock and roll songs.
All
That's a
right,
whole other. Yeah.
Pop rock.
We're
Great
gonna
candy.
we're gonna take our last break here, and then we're gonna kind of come with final thoughts and what else goes on with that. I don't know. We'll talk about.
We'll figure it out.
Yeah.
We'll actually probably talk while we're on while we're hearing a word from our sponsors, and then come back to you with something.
We'll do it live.
Yeah. And now a word from our sponsors.
Obese plants are an epidemic that are causing you to gain weight. Fat plants mean fat people. Simple. Time to tell your crops, lay off the sunlight, fatty. The Carthago method uses opaque, high-tech, nanopolymer bags and a proprietary potassium perchlorate mix to make your plants shed pound after pound after pound. The Carthago plant diets. Keep your corn svelte.
And we're back. Okay, so this is the last few minutes of the podcast. We're going to be talking about a few different things. We're going to sort of wrap up with ideas about how to avoid being in a cult, and a few other things. So we'll just kind of dive in, I think, right there.
Okay.
So let's...
Yeah. First thing. Don't make a cult. Just don't. If you're thinking about it, if you're kicking it around, you're thinking, man, I want that power, money, and sex. There are better ways to go about it. Don't make a cult. That whole exercise of building the cult of rock and roll, that was just for fun. Don't take it as a guideline. And if you do end up building a cult, disband it. If you don't disband it, don't blame us.
Yeah, see, that's what it boils down to, really. I mean, we just don't want any sort of litigation.
Right.
No blame here. We absolve ourselves. We wash our hands of the entire affair.
This was all entirely a intellectual experiment.
Yes, it was.
We want no goddamn cult built around us.
I mean, unless you're providing to our Patreon, then by all means.
Well, no, I mean, now we didn't even talk about a cult of the Arbitrarium. I mean, that because we might be able to get behind. You might.
Right,
yes.
Everyone at this table sits upon a golden throne of unassailable truth. So.
It's true, and maybe we should put a PayPal donate button on our. Can we do that on Spotify?
Mine has the skulls of unbelievers.
not on. I think we can do it on the website.
links.
Yeah, well, we can do that on that. Yeah.
Pretty sure there's also tentacles.
I'm sorry.
No, there's no tentacles involved.
No, you don't want that. We know you don't want that.
I mean, unless you want that, then knock yourself out. We're not trying to control your life here.
Some people do.
Slide into our DMs.
So, some things to keep in mind if you're thinking, I just got involved with this group, and I think things might be getting better, but I'm not so sure if this is a cult. Well, we're here to come to your rescue with some check marks, some check boxes you can look at. Is this a cult?
Trust us, we know.
Yeah. Unassailable truth.
This is not OCCULT. This is ACULT. A cult as opposed to a cult.
Okay, I thought.
Yeah,
I thought we were getting into some hip hop lyrics there for a minute.
that goes against the cult of rock and roll.
It's true, it does.
But first and foremost, are the people that you're around in this potential cult, are they trying to separate you from your previous life entirely?
Are they are they having you cut ties with your friends, your family, your pets, your
Money?
Yeah, your favorite television shows? I mean, I could be
Are they
anything.
particularly judgmental of your salsa preference?
Yeah, I mean, they could be.
I
That does go against the cult of rock and roll.
think he means the actual, sauce.
Oh, well, yeah.
Both.
He did say recipe, didn't he? So, yeah, okay. That
I mean,
makes
I
sense.
think that you also avoiding anything that says that if you don't do what they say, it will have some kind of eternal damnation towards you. I think that a lot of them believe that if you don't follow this belief system, that you're a goner. You're done for.
Yeah, and
Avoid ostracization rhetoric.
Correct.
or suicide threats.
Suicide threats?
Yeah. It's like, you do this or I'm going to kill myself.
Oh, well, yeah, I mean, but... Okay, I guess that's cult stuff, but I think that is being more like a toxic...
It's along the same lines.
individual relationships.
It seems more of a recruiting tool than anything.
Oh, yeah. I mean, if you're
As
dealing
in,
with...
I have to bring you in, or I have to kill myself.
Or exposing your deepest, darkest secrets.
If
On
that-
tape.
Oh, yeah.
I mean,
Or
if you really
to
just
someone.
really love ABBA and they're using that against you, you might be in a cult. Unless it's the opposite, where they're using that you don't like ABBA, then you're in an ABBA cult. And that's worse than a regular cult. I think.
All will
Okay.
burn on the altar of the dancing queen.
Anyway,
So I think that's the biggest red flag. Don't let them take away your previous life, and if they're trying, drop that shit like a hot potato.
I mean, unless they're, like a psychologist or a psychiatrist that you're actively going to.
Yeah, if you're getting professional help for this kind of thing,
Right.
ignore what we're saying. Listen to the guy you've hired.
Yeah, we're not professional psychologists.
Unless the psychiatrist is in the cult.
I'd be
could
more afraid
happen.
of that psychiatrist
Which could happen.
than a regular psychiatrist.
I mean, in Scientology, that's a thing.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, they
go
do. They have those people.
And they have psychologists that you tell your deepest, darkest secrets to.
Well, they're not psychologists; they're auditors.
They're auditors,
Yeah.
correct.
Right. They
And
don't believe in
auditors can be
psychology.
also very young auditors.
Mm-hmm.
And they're recording.
Yeah.
Nothing's ever off the record.
No.
So,
Everything is under that needle.
Other red flags that you might be in a cult.
Oh boy.
Similar dress?
Well, I mean,
Does it demand a uniform?
Does everyone wear the same thing?
why is everyone wearing rainbow suspenders?
A uniform in and of itself does not a cult make, but
Are you getting paid to wear that uniform?
I mean, by that criteria,
Those fucking
everyone who was in
Mouseketeers.
marching band was in a cult. my God, we kind of were.
A little bit.
You know, we were not encouraged to associate with anyone outside of the band.
Oh,
You did fascist. That was fascism.
Yeah.
Like
we
by
all
regular
wore the
definition.
Same thing. We marched the same. We were supposed to be exactly the same.
Literally.
J. Webb
marched to
was
same
the
beat.
god that we followed with his
yeah.
lieutenants, Mr. Burns and I can't
I
I
remember.
made a lot of fun of Mr. Burns, but Mr. Burns was actually kind
Yeah,
of...
Mr. Burns was pretty cool.
Mr. Story
He was
wasn't.
a great.
I ran
Mr.
into him at
Burns
Fort
was
Knox.
great.
Yeah, I remember you telling me
Yeah, that was a great story.
He was a good individual.
But a uniform doesn't necessarily mean that you're in a cult. It's just it's another red flag that you
Right.
can throw
Garrett's
on
an
there.
army guy, so he feels obligated to say this.
Yeah.
A little bit government culty.
Okay. I think that, hold on.
Okay.
Let's look at the army. Is the army a cult? No. The army is not a cult. Because you're told right up front what's going on here, for one. You are not forced into the army. No one's been forced into the army for quite a while. No one tricks you into the army. The only
I've
way
heard
to,
stories about recruiters.
Yeah, and that
They're preying on your
A
stupidity.
little
though.
bit.
no, they're preying on your naivety, not
No,
your
well,
stupidity.
Right.
that's fair enough.
They're you know when you join up, hey, you're going to have your hair cut, you're going to be wearing a uniform, we're going to teach you how to fire a rifle, and we are going to indoctrinate you. They're upfront and honest about that. They're not like, hey, are you concerned about, I don't know,
Tech war.
some
Are you concerned about your family being
brutally murdered and raped by
Brutally
terrorists?
I am now.
Well, then, there's a way that we can help you. All you got to do is give up all your money. Yeah, the army actually pays you, as opposed to you giving all your money
Right.
to the army. So that's another big thing.
Do you fear that you're not patriotic enough?
And the head honcho changes every 4 years and isn't dependent on the army for support there.
Right.
So,
We won't attack the army. There are
I mean, go
lots
ahead and
of
attack the
men
army.
and women
The army's
who
done plenty
serve.
of fucking wrong things. It's just not a cult.
Yeah, we're gonna lose
It's
them.
not. It's absolutely not.
Does Abraham Lincoln weep at the thoughts of things you do at the night?
Anyway,
Other red flags.
Other red flags that you may be in a cult. Do we have any other red flags?
I mean,
I've had a few drinks. I'm just waiting for somebody else to answer that question.
I think that we don't maybe not have red flags, but just kind of cautious yourself of joining a group, just to find, to being included.
Pay attention to those feelings of discomfort.
Yeah.
I think that's important. They may not be telling you the truth, but pay attention to them and assess them
Trust
because
those
they might
senses.
be. It's like it's one of those like it's like if you're feeling those like discomforting feelings, if you don't explore them, then you might end up in a lot more danger than if you do explore them. It's one of those types of things.
another red flag. Is there no sufficient level of sacrifice? Do you have to keep giving up? Do you have to keep giving? Keep giving of yourself, keep giving everything you
More
own.
and more and
Do you
more.
do they constantly ask for more devotion?
Right.
Right.
I think that's another good red flag there.
Well, okay. Now I will. Okay, so this is the Christian in me coming out. Admittedly, I think that there's an important distinction to make because there's at least a point in the New Testament where Jesus talks to these people about having to do those things. So I think maybe an important distinction to make for those of our listeners who happen to be Christians is that person very clearly and strangely a human being asking you to do those things for that particular person. Like I think that's a distinction you have to make. I know that sounds really, really weird, but for the listeners that we have that are Christians, they're gonna understand the difference between those two things. If that makes sense. Like if you're giving up those things for something that actually shows you results, like
Lent.
legitimate results, and has you being self-sacrificing and not for a particular person. That's the difference.
Lent.
Lent is a good example of that.
Yeah, is your sacrifice more symbolic
Right.
than
Than
literal?
monetary, yeah, or literal, or are you giving all of your shit up for this particular person,
Or,
right? Or group. Mm-hmm. You know, that's a big difference. So, and I only say that because of the particular issue that we were taking with giving everything up. It's like, well, you know, sell off all of your possessions and then follow me was one of those Jesus things. But what he did not say, and this is the important distinction to make, is give me all of those things, and then we'll continue with this. That wasn't like he wasn't going after all those things.
Yeah, is it only acceptable to give it to one person?
Right. Right. Is that
Or
leader
one
asking you for all of
organization
your
as
shit?
far as Scientology goes.
Yeah.
Right.
Is your lead... Okay, maybe this is an interesting one to explore very, very briefly. Is the leader living the same lifestyle that he is proposing that you lead? That
Yes.
is at least one possible way. Now, that's not... That is absolutely not a 100%...
It's like the uniform thing.
Yeah, that's not a... If the leader is doing exactly what he's telling you to do, that is not a sign that it is absolutely not a cult. So I want to make sure that that's
That
understood.
has actually produced a few Christian heresies.
Yeah. But that is one of those things you can look for, at least to see if the leader is legitimately
Involved in
yeah.
Or at least, does he believe what he's pushing?
Right, right. So that's one thing to consider.
Mm-hmm. Another, and this isn't in... Well, this is in most cults that I'm aware of. Are you being asked to either A, curb to the point of absurdity, or share to the point of absurdity sexual impulses?
That's a really, really good one.
I mean, you got, on one hand, you've got the children of God. Go out, bone everything.
No matter
Don't-
what age.
No matter what age, don't ever say no. Go out, spread your seed like a farmer with palsy. Or on the other side, with Heaven's Gate, chop your dick off. Do it.
Toss those
I mean,
overs in a field.
Or I'm the only one who can eat that
David
sin.
Koresh.
Right.
For I am the only one that can eat that sin.
Yep. That's sweet, sweet sin.
Yeah.
Come to me with your sin.
Come on to me.
My favorite sin for him is wrath. So, he's dead, so who cares?
All right. So I think that's another good red flag.
Yeah, I think it is. I think... So we said do not make a cult. We've covered that. The other thing we're going to cover is red flags of making sure that you're not in a cult. I think we did that pretty well.
There's more red flags. We
I
can
mean,
always find
there's
more red
always going to
flags.
be more red flags.
But explore that for yourself.
Supplementary material.
Think about it. Go to our comments section. Tell us what you think.
If you'd like to learn more about cults, consult your local library.
I mean, hell, if any group decides that you have to harm yourself as a means of devotion, don't really do it.
At least question it.
At least question it, yeah.
Consider that it may be bullshit.
Talk to your family about it. And if they don't let you, you probably are in a cult.
Oh, what if they're the ones that got you into the cult, though?
I mean,
Some people are born into it.
Consult your physician. If you're not allowed to go to a physician, you're in a cult.
That's a good... Yeah, there you go. Okay,
I mean-
we'll do that. All right, so I think we pretty much covered all of the things we wanted to cover in this. And,
Yeah, if there are no outside authorities allowed, you're in a cult.
yeah, that's a
at
good...
the very
that's a good,
worst, you're Catholic and eating bits of bread every week.
I suppose at the very worst.
And maybe wine.
All right. Are we good? Do we feel like we did a pretty good job here? I think we hit all the marks that we wanted to hit. I think
On there, yeah. Final
fairly well
thoughts.
structured.
Yeah.
Any final thoughts?
No final thoughts. I'm good.
Yeah, we're good.
Yeah.
All right.
All
All right. Well, I guess we'll
Be
see you
careful.
next week. I guess we'll see you next week when Garrett's going to show us how to. What are you going to?
I was going to teach you how to field strip a bison,
Oh, right. Okay.
like
So-
an M16, and then put it back together.
So you've got that to look
Not
forward.
butcher, field strip.
So you've got that to look forward to. Goodbye, fellow listeners.